Hey everybody, this is Chad. The fish we're trying to look at today is the chili Rasbora. It's from Borneo. It has the scientific name of Borraris bridget. Just a side note, when I was studying on this fish before I bought it, well, you might notice that the name Bridget sounds a lot like the woman's name Bridget, and that's because it was the name of the wife of the fellow who described the fish, Dieter Voigt. So her name was Bridget, and just to honor her, he named the fish after her. Very romantic, isn't it? Have a fish named after you. So this is admittedly one of my favorite freshwater fish, period, and certainly one of the most stunning nanofish available. Problem I've run into is availability. I've purchased these these in here quite a while ago, and the shop where I got them has not had them in stock since then. Or if they have, they sold them out so quickly that I never saw them. If you can get them, though, they are good fish to have. You can see they kind of like to hide, and that's because of these celestial pearl danio. So if you have them in a species tank, they won't hide quite as much. They don't like boisterous fish. So they'll go for about $3 to $6 each, depending. And a lot of places will give you a discount for buying more. They come from streams, so the particular streams where the water has a lot of tannins and there's a kind of low pH. But one of the good things I found out about them is that they don't necessarily have to have that low pH. They'll do fine in a tank with like 6.5, maybe even 7. Yeah, that's probably the max end of it, but they'll do okay. So you don't generally have to worry a lot about what your pH is at. Clearly they can be kept in a small tank. This is a microfish, a nanofish. I think a 5.5 gallon tank is just fine, but a 10-gallon tank is better. It's more appropriate. It gives them the swimming room. As you can see, the tank should have some kind of shady places and hiding places in it, because they like to hide, especially near the surface. You know, they don't really go down low very often at all, or even to the middle of the tank. They'll stay up in that upper part of the water column. So it kind of makes a planted tank ideal for them. They do stick together, so it's a nice shoaling fish. And also a dark substrate like the one I have in here is good because they'll stand out against it. That red makes them, it's kind of pretty. But it's really not essential what kind of substrate you get. If you don't like the dark, or if you want sand or whatever, they don't really go down there at all. So they don't really care what kind of substrate it is. But because they are a shoaling fish, and a fish that tends to shoal pretty tightly, you'll want to get at minimum 5 of them, and I recommend even more, 8 to 12. I have 8 of them. If they were available, I would definitely double the amount that I had. Getting a couple of dozen of them in a decent sized tank is, you know, fabulous idea. So keep that in mind if you're gonna get them. And that's one of the problems if you find them in a shop. People, they may not necessarily know that. So when I purchased these, I bought all the ones they had in the tank because I wasn't going to leave 1 or 2 of them behind, because having a couple of them in a tank, they'll stress and they'll die. So if you go to a shop and you see just one of them and you don't think that shop's going to get more in a very short period of time, don't buy them, because you're just setting the poor fish up for trouble. They'll remain small. They're not even going to get an inch long. Not even, you know, probably 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch, which my experience is the 1/2 inch tends to be more realistic. So as far as tank mates, as I said, the celestial pearl danio are boisterous. You can see these guys, they're darting around, they're dither fish swimming hither and yon, and so that kind of makes these guys want to stay in their plant. So if I were to remove the celestial pearl danio then the chili rasbora would come out. So it's just, what I'm saying is, if you want to see the fish more, personally I don't care, because I like the natural habitat. I like being able to look into my tank and hunt down a fish and say, oh, there they are. But if you really want to see them all the time, don't get boisterous fish. Don't put them with guppies or mollies or even most tetras. They do okay with the pygmy rasbora, but even the celestial pearl danio are just too much movement for them. It gets them going. They do fine with the shrimp. You can see the shrimp swimming around here. Yeah, they'll probably eat any of the little, tiny babies that they can get, but it's a little fish with a little mouth, so it can't take out a large size shrimp. That brings up a good point. Little fish, little mouth means you've got to feed it little food. They do well on Daphnia, extremely well. They do well on baby brine shrimp and the micro bloodworms as well. I feed them the Formula 2 flake. This is the same stuff I feed my marine fish. It's got an algae and fish base. Kind of rounds out their diet with that bit of algae. What I do with it is I'll take it between my thumb and forefinger and I will grind it up so it's a very small powder, so that it's in small enough pieces for them to get into their tiny little mouths. You can buy micro pellets, or you could buy fry food for them as well if you don't have ready access to Daphnia or baby brine. They'll eat live brine too, quite happily. The brine napoli. Anyway, so feeding them, that's one concern. Just make sure that they small food, and also they'd like to stay where you see them swimming around. That's about as low as they get in the tank most of the time, and so you want a food that sinks very slowly so they can get to it. They'll feed some off from the surface. So generally what I'll do is I'll put a few right above that plant, and they'll come up and get it, and then I'll feed the rest. They're not really heavily going to compete with boisterous fish, so you have to take care. When I put food in the water column, those celestial pearl danios get it first. So I've got to make sure that I put food where my rasboras can get to it. So as far as care of the fish, just because of their need for very clean water and stable water, and their need for the really small food and things like Daphnia and the frozen foods that you have to have, I consider this an intermediate fish rather than a beginner fish because of that. So wait till you have a tank that's been set up for a while and that you know the water quality is going to be stable. Make sure that you're good on your water changes, or at least keep your ammonia and nitrate levels down. Plants are great for this. So anyway, it's a great fish to keep. They do well with most other fish. They're not aggressive at all. So your big worry has to be what's going to be aggressive towards them or stress them. And of course the contrast in colors, the red against green or the red against a dark background, whatever, ends up making it just a stunning fish. So that's the chili rasbora. That's one of my favorite fish. I absolutely love it. Hope you guys love it too, and if you can find some, oh boy, great fish to have. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time.